All righty, so let us begin with a word of prayer. God of this day and all the days that are yet to be, we give you thanks for bringing us together once again. We open our hearts and our minds to the movement of your Spirit in our midst, and we know that if we are attentive and if we listen to that still small voice, it will lead us deeper into the mystery of your love and fill us with the grace and the truth, the wisdom and the courage that we need for the living of these days. And for that, we give you thanks. Amen. All righty. So, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to help me with the sermon this week. For whatever reason, I have the idea in my head, but it isn't crystallizing. So I don't know whether that means it needs a little fire or what. And it may be that I'm trying to go in a direction that isn't supported by the scripture. So we will see. We are looking at an incident that occurs in the temple. It's Matthew 22. And so that tells us that Jesus has entered Jerusalem. It's beyond Palm Sunday. He's in the temple, and the Pharisees come to him with a question, a well-known question. So without further ado, let us hear what that question is.
And the Pharisees went and plotted to entangle him in his talk. And they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God truthfully, and you do not care about anyone's opinion, for you are not swayed by appearances. Tell us then, what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why put me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. And Jesus said to them, "Whose likeness and inscription is this?" They said, "Caesar's." Then he said to them, "Therefore render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard it, they marveled, and they left him and went away.
All righty. Questions, comments, and conundrums?
Yes, I was suddenly began thinking, I was interested in the order that basically he keeps talking about money. And just a while ago, he had been talking about the rich young man, and then he talked about the various wages of those, of the
Vineyard workers.
Of the workers in the
vineyard, yeah.
And then he had driven the money changers from the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look back and we have the stories of the widow's mite and the story of of that. So it's very interesting that his parables, that there's a, I remember what the total number is, but the number of parables that all employ according to the realm or all kinds of coins.
So
Almost like he doesn't want us to be greedy or something.
Omisi doesn't want to what?
It's almost like he doesn't want us to be greedy or something.
Oh, maybe.
I look at this using the word money as an example of material things. And I think that's every time. And his example here is a perfect example of that. Material things are here. We need to focus on God's requests on us and our needs for God, both directions on the spiritual things.
As I said in sermon a couple of weeks ago, the number one thing that Jesus talked about in the Gospels was not love. It was money and material things.
But there's a reason for that.
Sure.
That's our biggest hang-up.
Jesus,
look at the world today. We are a material world.
Yep, materialistic society. Jesus knew that it could interfere with your spiritual health and well-being.
Well, the part of that is there's a blessed bitterness that's going to go on with us.
Yeah. So I like to say that when it comes to money and material things, it can either be a token or a tool. Token, you play Monopoly or a board game, the tokens kind of tell you who's winning and everything. And so that's one way that we relate to our wealth. It's who's winning the game, so to speak.
Like those bumper stickers on the
He wins, he who dies with the most toys wins. And I've always thought it's a stupid bumper sticker. He who dies with the most toys is dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Because that's what it means to most of us.
Say again, please?
That's what it means to most of us, that,
Right.
the dummy doesn't
But it
mean
can-
anything.
But it can be a tool. It can be a tool, an instrument. Money is neither good nor bad, it's how you use it.
It's wonderful when we have a food pantry where we get food up to people, that's material.
Yep. So the Pharisees have Jesus in the temple, and they're asking him about the paying of taxes to Caesar.
Are the Herodian Greek or one of those?
So
weird,
that's interesting. We don't
Jewish
see-
factions, and aren't there like all these weird Jewish factions? that
Yep.
Really crazy stuff
Mhm.
back then?
Yep. And
Shows on that.
do you remember hearing about the Herodians anywhere else in the Gospels?
The word Herod,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Herod was the king. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's a clue right there. Absolutely. Herod.
No,
So it's not a coincidence that they brought the Herodians with them. Hello, sir. I sent you a text. What's that?
Should I not interrupt?
Well, I'm live streaming. You want to come and say hi? Yeah, I sent you a text.
Next week.
Next, okay. Thank you, Rick. So it's not a coincidence that the Herodians appear here. The Herodians were collaborators. They were collaborators with the Romans. They were
Jewish.
They were Jewish. They were Jewish, but they were collaborators, okay? And so they supported Rome for their own personal gain, most likely. And so they were considered traitors. So now that you know that, why do the Pharisees have the Herodians with them?
they were trying to trip them up.
Exactly. If Jesus says, no, you shouldn't be paying taxes to Caesar, what are the Herodians going to do? They're going to run right back to Caesar and say, guess what that Jesus guy just said? And then it would have been bye-bye Jesus.
And if you'd answered the other way around, yes, you should be paying taxes.
He gets in trouble with the people.
Right.
Okay, because the common people hated the occupying Romans. And so, see, the Pharisees think that they have Jesus in a bind. No matter what he says, he's going to be in trouble. He's either going to be in trouble with the people if he says, yes, pay your taxes, or he's going to be in trouble with the Romans if he says, no, don't pay your taxes. And so Jesus, he's quick on his feet. Okay.
Hard to outsmart God.
Say again?
That's hard to outsmart God.
Oh, it's hard to outsmart God. Yes. And so Jesus says, show me a coin. They show him the coin. He looks at it. He says, whose image is on this? And they said Caesar. And then he says, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and unto God the things that are God's. Okay. Now, there are a number of ways that you can look at that. Okay. What belongs to God?
Us,
Our
spirits.
everything.
Yeah.
Everything. So in one way, Jesus is answering the question without answering the question. And he's also not answering the question by basically saying, you've got to decide that, not me. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what you should do. And yet, at the same time, his answer, he does tell them, but not in a way that's going to get him into trouble. Okay,
You cannot serve God and mammon.
you cannot serve God and mammon, for whether you will love the one and hate the other. But here's what makes it even more interesting. So they produce a Roman coin. Okay. Does that surprise anyone?
No.
Oh, okay.
Did they have, were the, Israelites allowed to have their own?
They're not supposed to have it in the temple, I understand that, but that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, yeah, so you're right. Why do they have the money changers? Because you weren't allowed to bring Roman coins into the temple onto the holy ground. Because on the Roman coin, there was an image of Caesar. And I forget the exact wording, Tiberius Caesar Filius Magisterium or something to that effect, which basically means Caesar, son of God. Okay? That's blasphemy.
Yes.
And apparently the Pharisees have forgotten that the second commandment says you shall not make for yourself a graven image. So how is it that they so quickly and easily produce a coin like this? Jesus is showing them to be hypocrites and showing them to be not the complete saints they wanted everyone to think that they were. So, is this why people don't like the Pharisees?
I didn't know that they didn't like the Pharisees.
No, well, the Pharisees weren't liked by the common people back then.
Yeah, I think they were hypocritical and lorded their position over everybody, right? They didn't really like take care. They weren't really doing what they were supposed to do anymore, right?
No.
They were supposed to be like being a helper, leader of the people, and they're just like being the fat cats, you know, like a.
They were like the head of church selling peanuts.
I was gonna say like the communist ruling people, you know, they were supposed to all be equal, but some were more equal than others, you know.
I mean, they did a lot of good, but the reality is that there was also a bit of sinner in them as well as saint. And so, yes, people back then didn't like them.
And they were accused, like they were not that pure themselves, as you said, and they were the people that said, oh, that person's no good.
Right. Yeah, they were quick to point the finger at others.
And they, you know, they were white collar.
Yeah. And why do people of faith today really not like the Pharisees?
Because they tried to trap Jesus.
Okay, so they were mean to Jesus. Yep.
They're the bad guys.
They are the bad guys in the gospel narrative. They are the bad guys. And you know, if we were at the movies and this was playing out, you know, that would be where you would be booing. Okay.
Jewish people still have a title of Pharisee anymore?
I don't think the title Pharisees is in use today. Pardon me?
They don't have either Pharisees or
I don't know. There's a number of different groups, but the three main ones are Orthodox, Conservative, and Reformed. Thank you. Yeah. So, is there any other reason why we really don't like the Pharisees?
Besides being fat cats.
Yeah. Hypocrites, besides being hypocrites?
They don't practice what they
They don't practice what they preach?
I guess they're always saying no, but they're always saying no to everything.
They say no to everything?
Logical and illogical.
Okay.
Are they doubting God's words?
No, they thought they were actually doing exactly what God wanted to
They're
do.
they're kind of the arbiters of the rules, you know?
Yeah, I think Pharisee means guardian. And there was an expression, they put a fence around the law. In other words, so that, you know, you wouldn't step over the boundaries and be unfaithful to the law. They were always lifting up the law as important.
Yes, and they were very much interested in jots and tittles.
Yeah.
The Pharisees, amongst others, in current day religions of various types, they dictate, this is the way you will think of things, rather than allowing people to talk to their creator, generally speaking, they intercede and tell you, no, this is how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I find that offensive in any religion. I guess I'm a Yankee. I don't like people telling me what to do.
I don't like people telling me what to do, and the Pharisees were very good about that.
Oh, very
And to a certain extent, it was do as I say, not as I do. Clearly, they had the moments where integrity wasn't front and center. This is a perfect example of them. I think there's another reason why we don't like the Pharisees. Because they're just like us, so we're just like them.
Oh, I hope not.
You don't
As
think-
a society, I think you're right, but as individuals, I hope not.
There isn't a little bit of Pharisee in you? There's definitely some Pharisee in me.
No,
Yeah, but you're self-aware, so it's not true.
I can't say the other person is wrong. I can say I have my beliefs and I'm very strong in my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But, for example, I have friends who are Muslim. I think 5 times a day praying is a total waste of time.
Okay.
But I respect their right to think that way. That doesn't
Okay.
make me think less of them,
Okay.
which is a demeaning thing. And I would hope the Pharisees' attitude towards people is demeaning
Okay.
and lowering them, and I couldn't do that.
So I'll just speak for myself. There are moments when I'm like the Pharisees. I have moments where I'm full of myself. I have moments where I don't do the right thing. I have moments where I can be a little selfish.
Well, that's all of us, but.
Yeah,
I
That's
think
all of-
they-
that's right.
But we don't, hopefully, none of us here do it.
No, but
This is the way, that was like their code though, and that's not your code. You try to, like when you realize, I assume.
yeah,
I haven't known you that many years, but when you feel like you're being selfish, you're like, oh,
yeah.
that's selfish in me, and you try to undo the selfish
Yeah.
behavior. or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. But the
You realize
reaction,
it, Whereas
Yeah.
I think they were like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
selfish got me this, so
Yeah.
keep being selfish and get more, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
in that way,
But-
but I see what you're saying.
but go
He
ahead.
still takes our toys.
I take what?
You still take our toys.
Oh, I still take your toys. Yeah, but it was so fun playing with them. No, see, I look at this and I think that's a common reaction. Oh, no, I may not be perfect, but I'm not like the Pharisees. Okay. And I think that this gets to an underlying issue, which is how we deal with our own failures, our own sin. Okay. We tend to respond and basically say, bad person, don't be like that. Say again, please.
Change our behavior.
Yeah, but is there a better way to change our behavior?
The phrase that I have used now is not my way, but God's way.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I think if you're having, like if you realize you're doing something.
Yep.
that, like God wouldn't want you to do,
Okay.
and sometimes so he teaches you not to do it.
Right.
I mean, the best way to start is to pray.
Mm-hmm.
Please help,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
realizing I'm.
Yeah.
Like being here, greedy in the situation or something,
Yeah.
can you, Lord, please help me, like
Yeah.
figure out a way to.
Do you think that people, when they come face to face with their sin, so to speak, that there's a tendency to beat yourself up?
I think some people do, and I think also some people try to rationalize the way.
They rationalize it?
But
Mhm.
it's, it's.
Or they
gotta-
make excuses?
Yeah, well, I think, that,
Yeah. Or they deny, I didn't do anything wrong. Or what's the other one just popped out of my head? Or they blame someone else. Well, yeah, I know I ate that apple, but the woman you gave me, she said it was good to eat. So you blame someone else.
That's hers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think,
Well, I don't know, I don't think God really wants to like beat yourself up about stuff. Like if you did something wrong, admit that you were wrong and
Uh-huh.
say you're sorry in a heartfelt manner, try to move on,
okay, so,
Like I don't think God wants
There's an emotion with that I feel when I do something wrong. I am so horribly embarrassed that I
Okay.
didn't realize it and reflexly, genuflexly did it. And then, how can I have done that? And I feel embarrassed by it.
So let me ask you this question. As you've read the Gospels and had encounters with these Pharisees over the years, we've said that, we have reactions, they're bad, they're hypocrites, this and that. Do you ever feel sorry for the Pharisees?
Yes. For not being all they could be.
Well, that's where
sad.
I'm going,
Yeah.
but I have to.
No, I mean, it's hard. Like in this instance, right? They got to learn something from the actual Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would have loved to have like hear a parable, like have him stand there and teach us for a Bible study, like that would
Mhm.
blow our mind. So, and it doesn't say they marveled, but they just say like, wow, that Jesus is one tricky dude, and because he's smart,
Yeah.
he just kept doing the same things they always did.
Yeah.
Then it's hard to feel sorry for them, I think, if they were like, oh, I mean, we always hear about them as a group. We don't hear about, Joshua the Pharisee, that he went, he heard this, and he's like, oh, well, my mind's blown, and now everything that we've been doing just makes no sense, and I'm going to quit being a Pharisee, I'm going to follow Jesus.
It would be helpful if we had examples in the Gospels where we see Pharisees doing something positive.
Where they realize what they're doing is not.
Although I can think of one instance with
Joseph of Arimathea, look at his change.
who?
Joseph of Arimathea.
Joseph of Arimathea. There's also Nicodemus.
Yeah.
Nicodemus was a Pharisee.
Yeah.
And yet he went with Joseph of Arimathea to claim the body and give it a proper burial. Then there's also, give me a second. Give me a second. Oh dear. I'm trying to think of a name. There's no name. Some Pharisees go to John the Baptist, they go to Jesus and they say, get away from here because Herod wants to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some good that the Pharisees do. Maybe not tons of examples, but there are some examples, but we tend to view them negatively. Right, but when I said, how do we look at the Pharisees? Did anybody say, oh, well, what about Nicodemus? Or what about, Joseph of Arimathea?
We all say, oh yeah, but look at them, naughty people that they are. We all agree, we're ready to jump on the bandwagon of disliking them.
Yes, we're ready to jump on the bandwagon of disliking them. And I guess my question is why?
I mean, I feel sorry for people that never have heard the word of God.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I guess you feel sorry for people who've heard it and they don't care. It's like, well, it's not too bad for you, you're gonna miss out. But.
Yeah, I'm thinking of my friends today.
Okay, friends.
Pharisees, like some friends of mine who are very self-centered or they love money.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel sorry for them in the sense that, they're doing fine here, but in the afterlife, how are they going to be judged?
Yeah, you look at...
so that's the extent of where I feel sorry.
Somebody once said, or a minister I knew once said, when it comes to money, you can't take it with you. If you try, it will burn.
The other thing is, he was not a Pharisee, but I think of Paul.
Paul was a Pharisee.
Oh, Paul
was a Pharisee.
Oh, so there you go. So he's an example of somebody who changed.
Yeah. So
significantly.
It's sort of like there's almost like there's something in us that needs our villains, needs our people with the black hats.
But we need, it's a theme you use frequently on Sundays, and I agree with it where it goes. knowing our failings,
Mhm.
knowing our tendencies, knowing our weak natures, and our desire to be better than thou by saying, oh, but they're bad. All of these feelings, which aren't positive, good feelings,
Mhm.
we learn to overcome them by coming to church on Sunday
Mhm.
and learning lessons. I guess that's where I am going with,
Yeah.
where does this take you?
Yeah.
Well, learn what the good things are and practice.
Yeah. So at the risk of ruining the sermon for you all, I'm referencing somebody else who is a stinker, or can be a stinker, but is loved by millions of people around the world.
Is it Donald Trump?
What's that? No. This is a woman, okay, and she is loved by millions of people around the world, and her popularity is surprising because at times she can be condescending, combative, crabby, and cantankerous.
And yet she's admired.
Just loved.
Okay.
Loved.
Not married.
So there's no way around. I gotta give this the punchline to the sermon away. Her name is Lucy Van Pelt.
No, for heaven's sake, yes. Good point. Very good.
The peanuts.
Yeah. A lot of people won't know that Lucy Van Pelt is the last name. Okay. But people love her, even though she's got a lot of the flaws that we see in the Pharisees. Now, I know that there's a difference. We're talking about real persons in the Pharisees and a cartoon. But I got thinking about this the other day, and what is it, that we like Lucy?
I think she's nice just enough,
Nice just enough?
Like she does actually help Charlie Brown once in a while.
5 cents, please.
She pulls the football away from him.
She also, he was depressed at Christmas, and she's like, it was a good idea, you should
But wait a minute, look at how she even compliments him at the very end. Do you remember what she says? Charlie Brown may be a blockhead, but he did get a really nice tree. So, so why is it that, we love Lucy? Not I love Lucy, but
does kind things.
But I just showed you that some of the Pharisees, and as we talked about it, we thought more, there's another good Pharisee that I can think of. And I think his name is Gamaliel, okay? And when Peter and James are brought before the Sanhedrin, the court that condemned. No, I take it back. This is Paul defends. Yeah, Paul defends them. I'll have to do a little bit of research here, but I think there's another one where it's a very similar. And this Pharisee stands up and says, he basically says, look, there are two possibilities here. Either these guys are not doing the will of God, in which case they're going to fail. Sooner or later, they're going to fail. Or they are doing the word of God. They are doing the will of God, in which case we could actually be guilty of hindering God's will. So, excuse me. Anyways, so again, there's a little ditty that kind of sums up what this is all about. And it says, there's so much good and there's so much bad in the best of us and so much worse, there's so much good in the worst of us and so much bad in the best of us that it hardly behooves any of us to talk about the rest of us.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I guess I have this feeling that the different reaction to the Pharisees and Lucy is because it's touching something deep in us.
Part of it's also humor. I
Right.
mean, the
That's what I
comic
was-
strip is funny.
Yeah,
I
it's,
mean, like, look at Don Rickles. He was like, he said terrible things about everybody, but
but people
everybody
laughed.
because it was funny.
And they loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People love to like go sit in the front, and maybe they get picked on. You
Yeah.
know, 'cause
Yeah.
it's funny, so you get away with a lot more.
So it's,
Going to the audience and say, look at that Jewish guy.
okay,
Yeah, put your
Here-
yarmulke back on.
here's another one. Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lovable.
the lovable bigot, yes.
He was, there was a lot of bad in him,
Right.
and yet people loved him. Why? Because I think it allows us to look at ourselves in a way that is gentle. In other words, there's a little bit of Archie in me. I'll admit it.
So look at our imperfections.
There's a little bit of Pharisees in me. There's a little bit of Lucy in me. Okay.
How did people get to be a Pharisee?
You had to go through special training. It was a very rigorous process to become a Pharisee.
So does that man to say, I don't want to be a Pharisee? Or
So-
like the rabbi would say, I think this.
You had to take you had to memorize. Yeah, so basically, this is what rabbis were all about and their followers. They were students of theirs. And so the rabbis would take the best of the best in terms of knowing the Torah and whatnot. So it was a rigorous process. But
They were religious leaders.
oh yeah, they were religious leaders. So I guess, I guess when we look at the Pharisees and people like Archie Bunker and Lucy, and the way we react to the negative, okay, which way does Jesus want us to react?
To be kind, to be tolerant, to be loving.
To be kind, tolerant, and loving. Exactly.
That's a sad thing, that mean-spirited, humorous remarks can be effective, and they reinforce other people's either prejudice or wishing to disabuse that person,
Mhm.
sadly. And speaking of semantics, I kept thinking about when Jesus says, "Render unto Caesar that is which is Caesar." One of the words that you often use in the payment of taxes or such is the word tribute.
Pay tribute to Caesar.
Paying tribute to Caesar. And tribute has a wonderful double-edged meaning. In other words, that there are kind of two definitions of tribute. Tribute in one dictionary definition, you'll find it representing money, practically a dollar sign. The other thing is we can also mean tribute in paying respect.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that in a way that the
When somebody dies, the tributes pour in.
tributes pour in.
Yep.
So in other words, that the other kind of tribute that Jesus has to do is paying tribute to God.
Tribute to God.
And respect
Yeah,
to God.
that's a good point.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting, a double definition. I thought was kind of.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think, yes, Jesus wants us to be kind. I don't know as I would say tolerate bad behavior.
I love that, right, I guess it's Paul, right, it's bear with one another.
Oh, yes, bear with one another, and if anyone has a grudge, forgiving one another.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a great,
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And so, yes, Jesus wants us to be kind, gentle, and loving when somebody does wrong.
That's one of the wonderful traditions that we, in recent years have been doing before communion, because in the very early church,
Yes.
before the communion service, they felt it was important for the congregation to feel they were right with each other. They wanted to put together their rights, their relationship between their brothers and sisters Christians, and that is wonderfully that we symbolic. The passing of the peace is symbolic.
That's right.
Symbolizes that.
Yeah, it's making peace with one another. Yeah. And so then taking it the next step, if Jesus wants us to be gentle and kind and loving with those who do wrong, and it doesn't even have to be wrong toward us, okay? How does Jesus want us to deal with ourselves when we do wrong? Same way.
Except our being human, which is all of these things.
Where we make excuses.
Good and bad.
Right, exactly. See, so thank you. This is coming together now. See, it's funny, as a pastor over the years, I've seen people go to two extremes when it comes to guilt. And that's what we're talking about here, guilt. They go to one extreme and they basically deny that, they feel guilty about things that they shouldn't feel guilty about, and they don't feel guilty about things that they should feel guilty about. My mother, God bless her, she'd feel guilty if somebody sneezed in China, and that's an exaggeration, but and I think so. I was thinking of using Lucy and the Pharisees in the sermon title, but I just got another idea for a sermon title. Good and guilty. We've heard that expression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, we need to be gentle with ourselves. And if we are gentle with ourselves, and again, I see people doing all the things that we've talked about when it comes to guilt, beating themselves up, denying, getting angry, well, I know I did that, but you did that, and all of these things. And if we start with being gentle with ourselves, doesn't it also increase the possibility that we'll be gentle with others?
Yes.
We talk about like God doesn't keep score, right? He doesn't every day, all right, well, you did these 5 things wrong, so it's black marks.
Yep.
Then you gotta do things that, other religions believe that, I did these 2 bad things, now I gotta go do good things or whatever.
Yeah,
Yep.
we know
Which
this.
we don't believe, but so, if God is then keeping track, then on you like that, then you shouldn't either let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I heard good advice when my kids were little that you had to just wake up every day with a
Clean slate.
So no matter how much they irritated you or whatever the day before, it's a new day, and you can't carry it over. If you keep carrying it over, just resentment will build and
That's a yoke.
build. Yeah, it's a heavy
Yeah.
burden. So we kind of have to do that with ourselves too.
Yeah.
You can't. Your first thought in the morning shouldn't be these are all the ways I messed up yesterday. It should be, it should be more positive thoughts.
And by thinking that way, it makes it easier to forgive for any past transgressions by others or by yourself.
But how many people, go through life and, they're still beating themselves up for something that happened years and years ago. We do that. So I'll give you an example, and so when my parents were divorced, and the mother I referred to moment ago was actually my stepmother. But when my parents were divorced, unfortunately, I was the oldest, and I was kind of put in the position, who's the good parent, who's the bad parent here? And so there was a period of, a good year or so where I wouldn't, so my brother and I were living with my father, and my sister was living with my mother. And there was a good year or so where I wouldn't go spend the weekends or whenever I was supposed to be with her, because at that point I said, she's a bad person. She's a bad guy in this. And, to this day, I still, kind of beat myself up when I realized and I look back on it and how that had hurt her. So, I think we all have these little reservoirs of guilt. And what I see here is, being gentle with ourselves, kind, forgiving. What's the third one? Loving. That, it then allows you to be that way with others. And you know what you need? The need to have people like the Pharisees goes away.
If you're going to use that title on it,
Yeah.
good and giving good,
Good and
Good and guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, and guilty.
Yeah.
It
Although
creates an affection.
basically, though, what I'm thinking of the good and guilty is that, I'm guilty. Sometimes I'm guilty, but it doesn't change the fact that the core of my being, I'm good. It's pretty hard to find someone who is evil and totally bad at the core of their being. And in fact, if they've been created in the image of God, they cannot be completely bad and evil at the core of their being.
I don't know if I'm citing something obvious, but Jesus' answer to the Pharisees, render things to Caesar.
Render unto Caesar the things of Caesar, and unto God the things that are God.
We're doing that. Everyone does that today. Like when you go to work, you're making money so you can pay for all the things that we have to pay tribute to Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
And we may be doing work that may not be that godly. You may have to be a debt collector and call people up and say, give us your money. And so we may be doing things that aren't godly. But yet we'll, on the weekend, we'll go to church and we'll do, in our own time, we'll volunteer and do things that give back to others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're paying tribute to both Caesar and to God.
Yep.
So, and I think most people fall in that category, not necessarily doing jobs that make people miserable.
Right. Yeah. But the key is why you do the good. Okay. There are two reasons why you do the good, and we have to avoid works righteousness, which says I'm going to do all these goods because I'm going to prove that I'm better than everyone else, which is what the Pharisees were doing. But use the black marks, the check marks, Leslie, and I use the analogy in this sense that there's that heavenly report card for each of us, and if you get a black mark on that heavenly report card, then you're going to want to get rid of it. And so you say to yourself, oh, well, you know what I'll do is I'll help a little old lady across the street this week, and I'll put an extra $5 in the collection plate on Sunday morning, and that will get rid of the little black mark.
That's selling penance, same idea.
Yeah. The answer is no, it doesn't get rid of that mark, because ask yourself this question. Why did you help that little old lady across the street? And why did you put that extra $5 in the offering plate? Is it out of the goodness of your heart, or you just don't want a black check mark on your heavenly report card? So now instead of just having one black check mark on your heavenly report card, you got 3. because you did these two good deeds for selfish reasons.
If I got $1 for every time somebody said to me, after I did something nice.
Yeah.
When they say to me, well, you'll end up in heaven now.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that many times.
Yep.
And that's not why I did it.
Yeah.
No.
I-
No.
I find that awkward to hear.
Right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I guess the answer is that Santa Claus keeps a naughty list, but God doesn't.
Oh, I think God keeps a naughty list.
Yes, oh,
but-
yes,
but God's way of- But whereas Santa withholds toys and you get a lump of, where you get a lump of coal, with God, you get a cross. That basically says, no matter what you do, you can't ever make me stop loving you. Okay, that's, and I think if we understand that and we take that to heart, that also helps us to be gentle with ourselves. And what does the Great Commandment say? You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. And in order to fulfill that commandment, you have to read it backwards. Okay? Because people say, okay, great commandment, love God, love my neighbor as myself. But if you don't love yourself, then you can't love your neighbor. And if you can't love your neighbor, you can't love God. Okay? And so it starts with love of self. Okay? But here's the thing. Okay? You got to be careful because self-love can be very narcissistic. So the question is, why do you love yourself, or how do you love yourself? It comes from God. So you create what I call the sacred circle. Okay? God loves you. The more you know that, the more you love yourself. And the more you love yourself, the more you love your neighbor, not because you want to get on God's good side, because you already are on God's good side. And the more you love your neighbor, the more you will end up loving God. And it is this sacred circle.
What a vicious circle.
It's a viciously good circle, yes. But again, and I thank you because this is helping me, is that we react differently to characters like Lucy and Archie Bunker, and then we have a different reaction to the Pharisees, and I think that's deep seated in ourselves.
Do you remember Roger Price?
Who?
Droodles.
Who?
Droodles.
No.
Droodles are little drawing pictures things.
Doodles.
That means something. Droodles.
Oh no, I'm familiar with doodles, but not droodles.
Now he wrote. Doodles is a common term, and he wrote droodles, put the R in it just to make it unique to his thing.
Okay.
Because there are drawings on it. There's whole books of it, as a matter of fact.
Mhm.
Such as if you have the waves of water coming up like that, and you see a triangle up top that's all black, that's a drowning witch. Okay, that's a droodle when you draw that.
Oh, and so you can look at something and see it two different ways.
And the vicious circle one is what came to mind.
Oh.
It's a circle with arrows pointing all towards the inside of it. That's the vicious circle. You draw the circle and then you draw the triangles all towards the inside.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's
I think
called
I
a vicious
understand.
circle.
So it's an image that can capture a saying or something.
Yeah, it evokes that response.
Yeah. So
The vicious circle is the one.
So
I
there's-
had a teacher in high school that did that one.
okay, yeah, I see what you mean. So one that just popped into my mind is shows the alphabet, and it goes like this: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K,
Yeah.
M, N, O, P. It leaves out the L. Why?
We got the hell out of here.
It's all about Christmas.
Yeah,
Noel. Yeah.
Yours is better than one I do, thank you.
Oh, I like the vicious circle with the arrows pointing inward. Yeah, so basically, this all asks the question, where are you on the Lucy Pharisee spectrum? And I think Jesus wants us to be closer to the Lucy end of the spectrum. So, all righty, everyone, thank you. Oh dear. And my apologies.